everyone. Kinsey Schofield here. Welcome to Crown and Conflict, a series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal stories in history with insight from world-renowned royal experts. We explore the stories that shook the monarchy and captivated the globe. This week, I'm excited to welcome royal biographer Hugo Vickers. Together, we are remembering Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent, which I had several people reach out to me saying, I'm so curious about this woman. So I knew that you were the perfect person to explore her history with. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of unrelated stories off the top so we can catch up on some current events before we go into honoring the Duchess of Kent?
We've got to do the conflict before the crown.
That's the truth. Is that not the truth? All right. So Prince Harry trying
Yeah.
to force this half in, half out royal lifestyle with his latest visit to the UK. That's how I saw this as I watched him do conflicting tours with Prince William. In the same 24 hours, we see Harry with young musicians, Prince William, the future king with young musicians, the donation. Um, am I being too sensitive in interpreting that as Harry trying to force this case that the Queen specifically said, that's not the way this works?
Yeah, it's a complicated one, isn't it? Because, first of all, I approve of him doing these sort of things because that's what he's good at, instead of hanging around in the garden while his wife chops up petals and scatters them over salads and things. Um, Having said that, of course, again, we can't stop him supporting charities if he's doing a good job. But I do see what you mean. It does look rather like a sort of pseudo royal engagement, and that is a shame. I sometimes think those coincidences are a little bit, just really are coincidences. I mean, everybody's out and about doing things. It's not very difficult for the media, particularly our media over here, to make a link, to say, aha, they're doing the same thing, because presumably these things are arranged separately and somewhat in advance, and they probably didn't know that they were going to be doing similar engagements. That's what I think.
All right. Well, that's a very mature response. Thank you for being the adult in the room as I as I sit and just fume. Talk to me about the meeting with King Charles. We I did not anticipate it. In fact, for 2 weeks, I said, nope, 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 it won't happen. I don't believe that it would happen. I think Prince Harry is too much of a liability. And within an hour of Prince Harry leaving, or maybe 2 hours of Prince Harry saying goodbye to his father, he's telling people at his Invictus event that his dad's doing great. I mean, I would just say no comment. Oh, you know what? I don't really feel comfortable
Yes,
reacting to that.
I mean, the good thing is we don't know what they talked about. I mean, nothing has come out. I mean, if it does, then I will be absolutely with you on that one. I personally have always been very keen that the two of them should meet, because I believe, like the late Queen, in conciliation, and that, that if people are prepared to compromise, it's a good idea, and one meeting can lead to another meeting. It doesn't mean that it's going to be leading to him coming back, because he would be a complete distraction, as he's proved to be the whole of this week, because the other members of the royal family go about their duties perfectly quietly and happily. But whenever he does anything, the media focuses on him. So if he came back and decided to undertake royal engagements, he would be in conflict with the king completely and deflect from what the king is doing. But just looking at it from a sort of father-son point of view, I think it's good that they meet, because, the king isn't well. He might not live a great deal longer. We don't know. We hope he will. It would be awful if there hadn't been some sort of private resolution between them, because Prince Harry carries a lot of baggage around with him already to do with his dead mother. I think he probably carries quite a lot of baggage around to do with his present situation and his wife. So if his father died with him still thinking that they were on really bad terms, that would be awful. I mean, it's just going to be the same for the children who haven't met their grandfather. But so I don't resent them having a cup of tea together, but I don't think it means anything more than that. And I hope it was a civilized meeting.
I mean, obviously, yes. I hope that Prince Harry it was a peaceful experience, and Harry didn't ask for anything, because that was one of my biggest concerns, that he'd roll in complaining about his security situation yet again, especially seeing how well protected he was during
He
the trip.
He was, exactly. And I think he always will be, especially if he was in any danger. But the fact is, he cannot expect to have blanket security paid for by the taxpayer when he's doing absolutely nothing of any use for this country at all. Absolutely out of the question.
You talked about guilt in your previous answer. I would feel really guilty if I released a Netflix series painting the entire institution as this racism institution, unfact checked, by the way. They talked about art within the palaces that were racist, that aren't even in the palaces anymore. Um, they were so hateful and spare Harry, the unnecessary comments about Prince William's physical appearance, how Prince William isn't as handsome as he used to be, Catherine's private text messages. And, within a few months, we find out that, and they actually weren't as hateful to the king as much as they were to Prince William and Catherine throughout this entire thing. But I mean, and also just to jump in and interrupt myself, Endgame literally came out weeks before we found out that there were these two very serious surgeries that the king and the princess of Wales needed to have. So they were, you know, assaulted by these headlines about them being the royal racists while they're trying to deal with these health issues. Do you think Harry feels guilty about those actions now, and that's why he's dropping a $1.5 million donation in the UK? Is that blood money?
I imagine, yeah, I imagine that there's a certain element about that. I would also add in, by the way, doing the Oprah Winfrey interview when Prince Philip was gravely ill, as he must perfectly well have known, and causing an enormous amount of distress to his grandmother in the last 2 years of her life. There's an awful lot that he needs to apologize for. But having said that, still feel it was a good idea for him to have a chat with his father. It can't have done either of them any harm. That, at least I hope not.
Yeah. I feel really guilty that I'm annoyed by the meeting. I wish I didn't feel that way, but am incredibly protective of Prince William and Catherine. Instinctively I just am very protective of them. And I feel like this is a meeting that would disappoint Prince William and potentially make him nervous, because he doesn't trust his brother and he's afraid that his brother might see or hear things, whether the king wants him to or not, that he could repeat or turn around and monetize and use against the family yet again.
Well, I mean, the one thing where I'm really absolutely with you on this one is, of course, that when he comes back here, to some extent, he becomes Prince Harry again, and of course, he needs to do that to show that he's welcome. I mean, he isn't going to be allowed up onto the balcony anymore. He's not going to be seen in any fine uniforms. And I always thought, well, goodness me, as time goes on, the man who was once Captain General of the Royal Marines in fantastic uniforms and all the wonderful things that he, traveling in carriages and appearing on the balcony, that is a member of the royal family. Instead of which you get this guy stumbling off a plane with a backpack and a woolly hat, and that's really eventually what he becomes. He just becomes another character like that. So there, of course, the fact that he has some sort of access to the king, I suppose, does have a potential monetizing element which isn't very attractive. But on balance, I think I was pleased that they met. I think it's such an awful situation that he's in already. I mean, I don't think he's in control of his life in any way at all. I think he's completely controlled by Meghan Markle, and so. If he can slip out every now and again and, perhaps maybe he did say sorry. Let's hope he did, because he's the one who has to say sorry, not the other way around. That's for sure.
Amen. Do you think that this it's interesting at all, this personal donation? That's what the headline kept saying, personal donation. What does Archwell do? Why would it not be an Archwell donation? What does Archwell do? What does Archwell do? Why does it exist?
Do you think Archibald gives money to Prince Harry for him to make personal donations with? I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know what's going on.
Isn't
But
that did that not was that not strange at all to you that the headline specifically said personal donation? It felt all very orchestrated. I mean, it leads into my next question. Is he doing this, showing up, extending his trip for 4 days because he's looking for some positive PR? He's trying to turn things around because the public has acted reacted very negatively towards him and his wife in the last 5 years.
Well, they certainly have, and I think you're right. I mean, when he does these sort of things, whether he does them in this country, the UK, or elsewhere, he does get positive publicity because he's actually quite, he's good at it. He's been trained to do that,
But
and
be
he.
also remember in the Times piece that you sent me, she says specifically that he handpicks media that is generous to him
Oh
to
yes,
cover him. And you want to be the first out of the gate. If you have these great headlines that are first out of the gate, then the Express and Daily Mail and everybody just kind of goes, all right, I'll just reword this. And it's
yes. He doesn't get entirely good publicity in this country, I have to say, and but the one thing that when I read the account of the meeting, I read several accounts in different newspapers. Nobody had anything new to say. I mean, they hadn't been told anything. Okay, he says, "Oh, he's great." Well, that's a kind of a non-comment, isn't it? I mean, it's not exactly saying. If he said no comment, to be honest, that would sound. Well, people would say, "Well, he knows something which he isn't going to share with us. It must be something bad." They would get at him for that. So I don't blame him for any of those sort of things. Let's just hope that he keeps quiet and actually, to be honest, that he doesn't come back and do it again too soon.
all right. I agree. Unless he brings, and people will be mad at me for saying this, but the only way I could justify it is if he brings Archie and Lily to actually see their grandfather. And then I'll say, when is it Thomas Markle's turn?
Well, I, wouldn't put money on Thomas Markle seeing his grandchildren. I mean, I think that's a
Ever.
horrible situation. Ever, yeah.
Because Thomas Markle can't do anything for Meghan Markle.
And Thomas Markle was, am I not right, living about 70 miles away? I mean, very close. I mean, it wouldn't have been.
He's
He's
moved. He's moved
moved
recently, but
now.
yes, but he
Was,
was.
yes, I mean it's a horrible situation that. I mean I've listened to a lot of the things that he says. I mean he gets reported, people twist, his words around and things, but if you actually listen to what he says, I think he's a very decent man, Thomas Markle. And he certainly was brought that girl up. He was the one who really looked after her and got her involved in the things which she's interested in later. I mean he must be feeling so dejected and rejected and bitter.
I
Really
would
awful.
be. I would
Yeah,
be. All right.
awful.
Something to look forward to next week. Catherine, Princess of Wales, is hosting U.S. First Lady Melania Trump at Windsor Castle's Frogmore Gardens. This is going to be a joint engagement, which I think is unique and sweet. According to Buckingham Palace, they will meet Chief Scout Dwayne Fields and members of the Scout Squirrels program as the children work towards their Go Wild badge. Um, Visually, this has got to be the cutest thing in the world. The princess and for the first lady really like to focus on the early years and how to make childhood as special and as unproblematic as possible. So this is a great union.
Well, it is, and of course the state visit's very interesting. When you probably know this, but when American presidents come on state visits, they don't actually have a carriage procession through the streets of London or the streets of Windsor like Macron had the other day. But actually, they're giving Trump a carriage procession within the home park. So they're setting one up which nobody will see except on television. So they're really pulling the boat out for him. Then he'll get a lunch with the royal family. Then he'll get a banquet in the evening. Melania is going to go and see the Doll's House, which if you haven't seen, Kinsey, one day you have to see. Perhaps you have seen the Doll's House. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. In
Yes.
Windsor Castle. I'm sure you've seen it. So she'll love that. And then, of course, yeah. I mean, so again, you see, Frogmore is a safe place for her to have an engagement like that, and they'll bring the kids in, and that'll all be wonderful. And then, meanwhile, Trump himself will be going off to meet Keir Starmer at Chequers, and she joins him there later before they fly out. So I think he's only actually in Windsor Castle for one night, but it'll be quite a night, even though we, the British, no longer have an ambassador in the United States,
I
as you
just
probably.
saw that. I just saw that. I was like, oh, how's that going to work? Nigel Farage is already saying, like, well, it would get me out of the way. But I doubt that Keir Starmer is looking to cooperate with him anytime soon or have to work with him voluntarily anytime soon. But yeah, how unique is that situation? Do you think that the Catherine and Melania appearance will be received well, or do you think that
Yes.
they're
Ye- Yes, I think it will be. I mean, whatever the Princess of Wales does always works. I mean, she's wonderful and she'll make it work. And it'll be a actually I'm even really rather excited about this visit, I have to tell you. I think it's kind of fascinating because it's the meeting of two different sort of ends of the spectrum, really. I mean, Trump and the British royal family, as far as I can see, are poles apart, and yet they will, the Queen found Trump rather fascinating as a study, I think. I mean, he went away saying that he was her favorite president. And I may have said this to you before, but I think she sent every president home thinking they were the favorite. Don't
Yeah.
you?
That's
That
a
was what
skill.
she's
That
so
is a
good at.
skill to make
It is.
everyone feel special. Good for
Yeah.
her. All right, well, let's transition. Known for her quiet dignity, the Duchess of Kent focused on education and music, and we'll talk about one of her charities that you've been involved in that she's so proud of here in a second, even teaching under the name of Mrs. Kent. In 1994, she made headlines for her conversion to Catholicism, which I think that I was surprised about that would make headlines, that would be of interest to people. A rare step for a senior royal, according to newspapers at the time. You spent quite a bit of time with her, Hugo. Talk to me about who the public thought she was, or did they
Well,
think she was anyone at all because she was kind of so mysterious? She had that mystique we always talk about, and who you knew.
Well, if you go back to the wedding in 1961 at York Minster, hugely popular. I mean, televised event seen by people all over the world, and people came because Princess Marina, the Duke's mother, was so well connected in Europe. You had people like Queen Ina of Spain and lots of foreign royalty there. Fantastic Yorkshire girl marrying a young soldier who'd lost his father when he was a little boy, and it's a great union. And if you'd been around, which I know you weren't, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, watching the royal family, you'd have seen a lot of the Duchess of Kent. And I just remember that I was about 14 years old, the state opening of Parliament in 1966, and in those days they had a royal procession of members of the royal family came in to show their support to the Queen before her procession. And, you had Princess Margaret, you had the Duchess of Gloucester, Princess Alice later on, you had Princess Marina, and you had the Duchess of Kent. These were extremely elegant. I mean, they were like film stars, and they were beautifully dressed with their orders and decorations and their tiaras and their jewels. And they walked in, obviously with their husbands, if they had husbands with them, which they did actually by and large. And then they took their place in the House of Lords. And I mean, to see that, it's gone, that era. It's completely disappeared. And so the young Duchess was very much around. And then she took on all sorts of different charities and different things that she got involved with, Age Concern and the Samaritans. She had regiments. She was Chancellor of Leeds University. She and the Duke both absolutely loved music, and that was one of the great things they had in common. And she liked riding and she liked country pursuits. I mean, she was a really nice, genuinely nice girl, who married into the royal family. Not perhaps the first choice of Princess Marina, the Duke's mother. She was rather sort of inclined to want royal dynastic marriages. That's the way she'd been brought up. But Catherine, Duchess of Kent, she was really popular. And I've noticed, particularly since she died, because we haven't seen her out and about very much recently, how so many people have commented on how lovely she was and how she balanced the dignity of a member of the royal family with a sort of humanitarian side, very, very much pre-Diana and without all the attendant hype.
Or calling the press, in between
Exactly.
in between stage paparazzi shots. Although
Exactly.
that's not too fair to do. I know Diana was harassed by them
No,
as well.
yeah, she
Um,
was.
let's talk about because you posted this gorgeous photo. Um,
Yes.
photographer aside, you posted this very sweet photo and you went into detail about how the Duke of Kent would take his wife every week to get her hair done. And there are images of them walking to the hair salon together that are absolutely precious. And of course, when I shared that, a couple of people messaged me saying, I want to know their love story. Do you know what first drew Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, to Catherine, and what made their marriage stand out at the time?
Well, I used to because I did a book with him, as you know, and so the lovely side of it was that she appeared from time to time. I mean, by that stage she wasn't going out very much, but and then I used to sometimes because I'm not often in London at the weekend, but I knew that they got a little bit bored sometimes. I was told that, and so I used to get in touch and say, "Can I come for tea?" And that would sort of like be a little beacon in the middle of the weekend, and so had a nice time. And together they both told me that contrary to the thought that they met when he was stationed in Yorkshire as a soldier. They actually met at a hunt ball at Blenheim Palace, the Hatrop Hunt Ball in the late 50s. And and I think that I was thinking about this, I think unlike some of the other members of the royal family, he, and particularly unlike his mother, he wasn't interested in sort of cosmopolitan, princesses of Europe. And I mean, the normal sort of finding ground for one of those marriages was Germany's sort of German Protestant princesses and things. It didn't really interest him. So he found himself this really nice, wholesome English girl. And I think that's what it was. And they, she was, variously from time to time an army wife. That time when they both said how the happiest time of their life was when they were stationed out in Hong Kong. It was before that they both had to really take on full-time royal duties. They had their little boy George with them. They had the nanny, and they could go to the officers' mess, or they could go out and water ski, and they could do all those things together. And they had a lovely time in Hong Kong. And they were later stationed in Germany. Had two more children later on. And that photograph was taken by a random photographer who unfortunately told me to take it down, so I did. But it's just a pity because I had 2.3 million people looking at it. And I think it summed up something extraordinary, which was here was a man, who once a week, after, must have been by then about 60 years of marriage, he would take his ailing wife out to the hairdresser, to take her along and look after her. And one of the people who saw the picture, she was in a pink coat, said, "Oh, I remember seeing the Duchess of Kent in H&M in Kensington High Street buying that pink coat."
Oh,
So
how funny.
incredible connection, and I think I don't know why, but I think there was something really touching about that image. I think there was something which showed that, whatever they'd been through, in their lives, variously, because she had a, she at one point had a miscarriage, and she had she had a sort of nervous breakdown at one time. She was sometimes, she did find life difficult at sometimes, and later on found her sort of métier in teaching children to sing, and in music, which was the great sort of thing for her. But despite all that, there they were, going off to the hairdresser. I think it was lovely. And again, if I went to see them, I was very lucky to go and have tea. We would talk about all sorts of fascinating things for a few minutes. I never stayed too long because they would get tired, but that was great.
I think that we love the photo because chivalry is dead. You don't
Yes,
see that
yes,
very often
yes,
anymore. It's just such a beautiful expression of love, and nothing is said. It's you just see it. And so,
yes.
yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons why we love that photo. Hey guys, I want to take a second to tell you about a brand I really, really love. I know you've heard me talk about them before, but obviously, I'm not done telling you about Peak. They're reimagining wellness with science backed tea crystals and superfood blends made with the cleanest ingredients. Everything they create is designed to make daily rituals simple and effective, whether for gut health, radiant skin, steady energy, or just feeling our best. For me, hydration was always tricky. I drank plenty of water, tried different electrolytes, and even the right very expensive skincare, but still had dry skin, brain fog. And you know what I'm talking about? Like sometimes I bet you could see me in interviews, like searching for words. The brain fog drives me crazy and trouble sleeping. That changed with Peak's deep hydration protocol. In the morning, I take BT Fountain, the beauty electrolyte. It hydrates from within, smooths skin, and gives steady energy. At night, I wind down with RE Fountain, the calming electrolyte, which has a form of magnesium that melts tension and helps me sleep deeply without waking up groggy the next morning. What I love most is how clean it is. No sugar, fillers, or artificial flavors, just ingredients like lemon juice and beetroot. Within a week, my skin looked more hydrated. My focus was super sharp, and I just felt better. I want to give you the opportunity to give it a try. I've got a special link in the show notes. It's 20% off for life plus a free gift with my link. It's peaklife.com/Kinsey. That's PIQUE life.com/Kinsey. Now, the Duchess of Kent converted to Catholicism in 1994. How significant was that decision in the context of the royal family's traditions and histories? Because I'm saying that this upcoming funeral will be different, and historically, that's very significant. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I mean, going right back to the time of the Reformation, then there's been this sort of ban on Catholics. I mean, in the olden days, until very recently, any member of the royal family who married a Catholic would have to lose their right of succession to the throne, and that was very complicated. The Duke of Kent didn't have to do that because when he married her, she was a Protestant, and after that, for some reason, the fact that she converted, it didn't really matter. I remember being told at the time, the Queen said to somebody, to a friend of hers, oh, guess what? The next crisis is going to be, which is that Catherine was going to become a Catholic. But it wasn't a crisis at all. It was very smooth and very easy. And the Duke occasionally went to a Catholic service, and she sometimes came to a Protestant service, and they managed it very well. But she obviously took an enormous, comfort out of the Catholic religion. And indeed, the Requiem Mass is going to be held at Westminster Cathedral, which is the biggest Catholic cathedral in London. But then after that, she will be taken privately to Frogmore, where, the next 2 or 3 days later, nearby, is where Princess of Wales will be meeting Melania, and she will be buried in the royal family's private burial ground, which is a beautiful place. It's just in the sort of shadow of the mausoleum of Queen Victoria, and the Queen. I always say the Queen. I mean Elizabeth II. She used to go and walk her dogs sometimes through that graveyard because she knew so many people under the stones. There was Uncle David, the Duke of Windsor, there were the Gloucesters, and so many of them that she knew, and it's a very tranquil spot. I mean, the Duke of Windsor specifically asked the Queen if they could be buried there. They had other plans, and they chose the particular space where they would be buried. And so each family is slightly separated, and the Kents at the moment have got Prince George and Princess Marina, son of George V, first Duke of Kent, and Angus Ogilvy, Princess Alexandra's husband. His grave is there, and so the Duchess of Kent will. She'll join that part of the graveyard.
Yeah, I'm so curious about that. We've talked about that in a previous episode about how Wallace wanted a very specific spot so that,
Yes.
because
Yes.
she wasn't sure how often she'd be visited and she wanted to get the beautiful leaves of a tree. So,
I mean, the
um,
royal family do go there. I mean, the Duke of Kent and his brother sometimes, if they're going to something at St George's Chapel and they're a little bit early, they go to Frogmore. And when Princess Alice, Duchess of Gloucester, was alive, on Christmas Day, she always used to take her son and daughter and grandchildren to St George's Chapel for Christmas matins, and they would always go and visit the late Duke's grave, and of course the grave of her son William, who was killed in a plane crash in 1972. So it's full of interesting people, that graveyard. I mean, if they, I mean, I know, I don't know if this is sort of too irrelevant, but when I luckily took the Duchess of Windsor's secretary to see that, and we had to get the Queen's permission to do it. And then the very nice man who was looking after the graveyard, we went round and I told them the stories about all the different people, who they all were and how they all interrelated. And there were some quite interesting things about that graveyard in those days because she's been moved now, but Queen Marie of Yugoslavia, who happened to die in England, was buried there, and she was buried in a Victor Steeple dress. So there was some haute couture in the Frogmore graveyard. And now she's gone back to Belgrade.
wow, that is interesting. I do appreciate details like that. Just
Not
never
many people
hesitate.
know that.
Yeah, never hesitate to share those types of details with me. Let's talk about how the Duchess of Kent carved out her role within the monarchy. Without having to always be in the spotlight. You specifically talk about her teaching children and music being so important to her. It's like she found a niche, and that was a strength, and she also really enjoyed it. I see similarities with William and Catherine, how they have particular interests and they just go at those full force. How did she, carve out her little area within the monarchy?
Well, I mean, she was one of, I'm always going on about how the best members of the royal family are the ones who are supportive, who do what they're asked to do. And they were sent off to do independence ceremonies. They were sent all over the world. And what she said when I talked to her was, always got this impression that she was always enjoying learning from things. She said what a privilege it was to meet all the different people she met on her travels with the Duke, and to learn from them. And similarly, there came this point when, she actually asked the Queen's permission, could she step down from royal duty? So she gave up being Chancellor of the University and all those formal positions, and went off to Hull in Yorkshire again, and was teaching these children singing. And she gave quite a few interviews. And some of the interviews she said that she reckoned that she learned more from the children than they did from her. But they didn't know who she was, and she obviously had that sort of rapport with the children and the young, and then sometimes there's a footage of her in Macedonia talking to orphan children. I mean, she was very good with. She had that sort of Diana touch, as I said before, but pre-Diana and without all the attendant publicity. But having said that, she and Diana did get on incredibly well together. They were very close. They were very,
Oh,
very fond of each other.
well, that's interesting to hear. Do you have any specifics on that relationship, or do you just know that she admired her?
I think there was a lot of of chat between them, but it's a good thing. I don't know what they said to each other, but I
Yeah.
just do know that there was a very strong rapport. And the other member of the royal family who was very close to her was the present king. And he used to send a birthday cake round to Kensington Palace every birthday with a card written in his wonderful black spidery handwriting. And, that was something she looked forward to. So he was, I mean, he'll be very sad. And because he was very fond of her. In the days when the royal family used to ride on the Ascot course before the races in the early morning. You sometimes used to see them. I remember a photograph, and her, she and he would be riding side by side. And I remember seeing her getting out of his car once at a polo match. And so they were really good friends. That was nice. And actually, on his 30th birthday, now I remember, he went to Covent Garden for some big performance, and she somehow managed to also be there for one of her charities. So they were in the royal box together. So
Oh, cute.
the royal family do have these sort of extraordinary, some are closer than others, but they were very close, and but Diana too. So that was nice.
It was nice. What are some of the causes you talked about, her showing up side by side with him to represent some of her charities, some of the causes that she was most passionate about, and how did they reflect her character?
Well, of course, Wimbledon is the time which we think of particularly. He took over from his mother as president of the All England Club, and she used to present the prizes. And you will have seen pictures of her, consoling those that lost from time to time. I mean, she did it always with great charm. I think probably to the man in the street, if you said Duchess of Kent, he would say Wimbledon. That was the
Oh,
big thing. Yes, very much so. But again, she was also a Samaritan. I mean, she did that, which is when people can ring in and they again wouldn't know who they were talking to. She used to do that. And then, of course, these a lot of charities like Age Concern, and then of course when they lived in Buckinghamshire, she would be involved with local charities. I mean, she sort of eased herself into the role when she married him. But so she married in 61, then she was having the first two children. Then when Princess Marina died in 1968, she obviously took on a lot more after that.
tell me about her charity. This is Future Talent.
Well, this came out of her visits to Hull, and she, was seeing that there were. She said to me, well, the great thing is to get music into their little bodies when they're very small. That's a great thing to do. But some of them couldn't afford to have tutors. They couldn't afford musical instruments. And so actually Future Talent was set up with a very nice man called Nick Robinson. And at the moment they support about 100 youngsters, 50 in the north and 50 in the south. And they put on concerts. And I've been to well, I was very lucky because I managed to siphon some money from a charity I was working with, which was closing down, and got £10,000 for future talent. So they very often ask me to their concerts. In fact, the last time she ever came out was to a concert at St James's Palace. And then you'll get lots of different performers, young performers playing maybe the flute or the piano or, or three or four of them together. And they're really, really good. And it gets them going. And that's what she liked. It gives them a start where they might never have ever had that opportunity.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and it's fun to watch very
Yes.
talented little children. Like it's so fun to see that. You don't know, what could it's fun to sit there and imagine what could be in a couple of years if they continue to, cherish that talent and if they continue to practice. And you just, I imagine it's a lot of fun. She was a music teacher, so she saw a lot of that. Um,
Yes, she did. I mean,
the
before
fact,
she married,
okay.
she was a teacher actually in a school very near where I live in London. She was at Lady Eden's School, which was a smart girls' school run by Anthony Eden's sister-in-law, and she was an actual teacher there until she married.
When so she does marry, she continues to teach
Yes.
later in life, and she tells the children to call her Mrs. Kent. What does that reveal about her values and identity outside of royal life, Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle?
Well, there are one or two interviews with the Duchess of Kent in which people sort of ask her the thing about why you call yourself Mrs. Kent, and she always looks astonished. Well, why shouldn't I? I mean, it's just much easier. It's simple. Just do it. It's modesty, isn't it? And I
Mm.
think modesty is what she had and what the other one doesn't have. So
Ah,
she was very modest. I mean, I remember when I did this book with the Duke of Kent, and I wanted to get the royal participants to sign it. And when I asked her if she would sign it, she sort of said it was a great honor to sign it. I mean, it was a great honor for me to have her sign it. But
yeah,
she turned it round. And it's very humbling. She used those words. You
that is
know,
so sweet.
yes.
What do you think history will remember most about the Duchess of Kent? This is the time that we should be honoring her and remembering her and bringing up all of her sweet characteristics.
I think this is what I've been seeing and hearing from people is that they just say, "Oh, she was such a lovely person. She was had such a good heart, and she slotted very easily. Well, I say she slotted easily into the role. Even if she didn't find it easy, she made it look easy, and she didn't complain. She didn't push herself forward in any way. She just went about her duties. She did. I mean, so much when they were young. I mean, so many things that they did together." Going to Calgary, going to Tonga, going to Australia. And of course, people always wanted to see her. They always want to see the female members of the royal family. So when she was around, she was a great asset. And I think that's the message I'm getting. But alongside it is the fact that people know that she had this very strong humanitarian side, this caring side, which I think is very important.
It is. Do you see her life as an example of balancing personal conviction with royal duty, which can be incredibly difficult looking at the past, seeing some other people struggle with it? She, like you said, it looked almost seamless.
Well, you see, I think that it goes back to that thing, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, of saying, when people aren't competing with the sovereign and they're just helping. It's like Sophie Wessex, Duchess of Edinburgh now. She never competed. She's never seems to have had any problems with it. But the ones who push themselves forward and expect more for it, they don't realize that actually being a member of the royal family is a life of service as opposed to a life of sort of freebies and all the other things that go on. Um, that's the trick, I think, and it works. And if you could say that. I mean, I mean, I think she appreciated that by marrying the Duke of Kent, she had a very interesting life. She as a Yorkshire girl, with a father who was Lord Lieutenant who liked his cricket. If she'd married a local man, would she have gone to Tonga? Would she have gone to Australia? She might have done, but I don't think so. And she wouldn't have met all those extraordinary people. All those because the heads of state come out, and I mean they had a lot of fun. I mean, and he was a great cine film maker, and so there are some wonderful cine films of their travels and of the, of the different sort of performances that they sat through, and and again, I remember the scenes of their honeymoon in Majorca, and she was a very good water skier. I find myself obliged to say to him, "Sir, you water ski a bit the way I do." It's not quite as he got better at it later, but she was a natural.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
You and I have both been asked this question in the last week, and we have the same answer. The prediction as to whether Prince Harry would attend her funeral. You had a lot more insight about this than I did. I said, I don't think so. He just spent 4 days. He doesn't like to be away from his family. He doesn't like to be outside of Montecito when he doesn't, when it's not required of him. But you had a story about Harry walking around trying to introduce his new, is it fiance or wife to his,
Well, yes. I mean, at the there's a Christmas party that is given, for members of the royal family. It's the Queen used to, and the King still does it, gives a big lunch, either at normally Buckingham Palace, but sometimes Windsor Castle, to thank all the members of the royal family for the support they've given over the years. And so the year when they were just engaged, before they got married, Prince Harry brought Meghan Markle there, and I was told by somebody that he seemed to be able to didn't know who some of these cousins were. I don't know whether the Duchess was there that day, probably not by that stage, but I know she did go to his wedding, but I don't think there was probably much that they had to do with each other, to be honest.
Yeah. So basically, Hugo's answer was like, well, we're not quite sure that.
He won't be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't want him there. We don't want him there because wherever he goes, he's a distraction, and the focus must be actually, even though she would probably say don't, but it's going to be remembering her. I mean, that's the main point of the service.
Do you mind
On
if I ask you to correct the narrative about the Duke of Kent dismissing well wishes, which we both said that that's not true at
Oh,
all?
that's absolute nonsense. I don't know where that came from. I mean, that would be ridiculous.
And tell me,
Absolutely.
he's a sweet man. He would have, if Prince Harry did send condolences, the Duke of Kent would have, that would have really touched his heart. He would never have rejected anything.
No, he acknowledges everything extremely politely. I mean, there was a photograph you may remember, possibly even moving footage on television when it would have been the Trooping the Colour. It must have been in the Jubilee year, Platinum Jubilee year. You can see him talking to Prince Harry in the Major General's office.
Ah,
Perfectly happy to talk to them, but he would be very polite. Of course, he would acknowledge it, and he
mm,
acknowledges everything. He's got totally best manners in the world, which doesn't
yes.
cost anybody anything, does it? It's a
It
very good
doesn't
idea.
doesn't
Manners.
cost anybody anything. I'm glad you said that. I'm going to put you on the spot, and I apologize, but you said something that got my antennas going. Everywhere Prince Harry shows up, he's a distraction. Is he going to be at Prince William's coronation one day? If
Uh,
things stay the way they are right now, would he be invited to Prince William's coronation?
I think if I went down to the bookmakers and put some money on, I probably would get very, very good odds if I said he was going to be there. By which I mean to say is, we don't listen. I don't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know. Prince William doesn't know. But the way things are at the moment, quite likely not. The only precedent, really, which was a great worry to them all back in 1953, was whether to invite the Duke of Windsor. But it was made absolutely clear that it would be inappropriate for a previous king to attend the coronation of a future queen. And very politely, this message was given to the Duke by his lawyer from the royal household, and he put out a statement to that effect. It would not be appropriate for me to be there. And then there were photographs indeed of him watching it on the television in Paris with the Duchess. But of course, he'd been a king. So with Prince Harry's different. I mean, Prince Harry was at the last coronation, as you know. He didn't play a significant role, but he was there.
Oh yeah. If you just had to look behind the feather in Princess Anne's hat, if you
Well, the feather, yes. I mean, these photographers must be so pleased when they find that they can take a picture like that.
well,
I'm a conspiracy theorist,
I know
Karen.
I did get a kick out of it while I was watching it. I was like, "Ooh, what a seat." Ooh.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, well, the coronation was a bit of a muddle, but in the olden days, of course, as a royal duke, he would have been sitting out in front. There would have been chairs with all the royal dukes sitting out, and they would all have done homage.
Oh
That's how it
wow.
was. Because the Duke of Kent, going back to him, in 1953, he had to, as a young man of 17, come out in front of all the congregation and all those television viewers and do homage to the Queen. He had to, and he thought he had to remember it by heart. I don't know why anybody didn't tell him, but the Bishop of Durham actually had a card with, I become your life man of, liege man of honor, all that stuff that they say, of life and limb, and all that.
Right.
So he didn't really have to remember, but he was terrified, absolutely terrified. Who wouldn't be?
I would be. Yeah, absolutely. The entire world's watching. Even back then, there was somebody would have reported if there was a hiccup. It might not
Yes.
if their social media wasn't around, but it word would have spread. All right, agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Hugo, what a sweet way to remember the Duchess. And she just sounds like the loveliest person. I wish that I could have had tea with all of you because that sounds like a fun experience. And so, her heart just must have been three times bigger than the normal, the average person's.
Yes, she was a very sweet person, and I think we were very lucky to have her all those years. And when she went off to do her own thing, found her métier in later life, I bet you there are a lot of children who owe her a lot. Their start out on their, especially on their musical careers. Um, I think. I think that's very, very, very touching, and I think I know that the family have been, hugely heartened by the messages that they've received and the response by the general public to her death. I think that's,
Absolutely.
even though to a whole generation, I guess, a lot of them wouldn't have really known who she was because she wasn't around, but we remember who she was.
Yes, and we will continue to, when it's appropriate, remind the world of the Duchess of Kent. So thank you so much for your time today. I know I will see or talk to you again in record time. Thank you so much, Hugo.